Good morning, everybody. Sorry we're late. Bill was telling us about his addictions.
Acid reflux.
Great topic. Great show.
Now Dennis got me coughing.
Sorry.
Dennis is back with us, but he's been coughing, so if he blanks out, that's why. Jerry was here, but he got a call and had to leave, so we're gonna try and do it without him today. And there again, we have nothing planned today, so
typical.
Somebody started up after Steve goes through the roundup here.
And I'm back. It's good to be back. I'm not working today. That is awesome. Okay, Rob T-Man, good morning. Chris Brew, my buddy, welcome. How are you doing? Bandit, are you going to buy little engines? You should. Almar, John Banachecki, Andy Hot Dog, Pilot. Did I say Steve Childers? Container Man, Roy, how are you doing? Almar, Lynn McCurdy, Gerald Stewart, and we got Stephen at Wigwag. Rob, I said Rob, didn't I? Rob T-Man, Dave Talk. Hey, fellow buddy engineer, how are you? My buddy Bernard, take care of it, man. Hope your wife's good. Let's see. We got Thomas. Good morning, Thomas. And let's see. I know I missed somebody. Okay.
Roy's here.
Okay.
Roy just popped in.
Roy. Anyway, good morning, everybody. Good to be back in the saddle.
Yeah, it's good to have you back.
That's funny, Steve. Childers has been calling Dennis Bryan all morning in the chat. We were wondering what was going on. We didn't know what the heck it is.
Like, who the heck is Bryan?
Don't fret it, Steve. We've all been there, man. You seen that video of the groundhog? It looks like he's talking, and the guy's going, Steve. Like 10 minutes, and finally goes, that's not Steve. Phil. That's what it is. Dave Todd's here too. Good morning, guys. Ray Burgeson's here. Good to see you guys.
John, 26. Wow, how are you doing? Where are you? Our favorite pilot.
Yeah. Oh, is John here?
Yeah.
Good deal. We got to get him back on the show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And hi.
So we don't really have anything to talk about this morning other than model trains.
What do you guys want to talk about?
Coming up on my screen. Excuse me. Anyway, Dennis is recovering from flu, and I'm recovered finally. I finally feel halfway decent after about a month.
Well, and it's amazing I'm not sick because half our drivers are out sick and the other half are working sick. So
yeah, it's definitely been going around. Everybody here on both sides of our family have had it. So
yeah. John, he says he's on his couch at home drinking coffee. Well, good for you.
Well, everybody's drinking coffee this morning, I think.
I'm out of coffee. I should go get some.
No, not quite, but close.
I'm out.
No, this is going to be my last cup, I can tell. We were just talking about how much coffee we've been drinking.
Chris Brew, he says he's working on CAD work for a FM 2466. Okay, what's that, Chris? I'm sorry.
Burbank Morris.
No.
Is that like a train? One of the train masters?
No, Chris he's steam, man. That's got to be a steam engine or something.
I've never heard that designation before, but doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, FM.
A lot of stuff I hadn't heard of.
No, I think he's working on a Heisler. I think.
Okay.
We got to get Chris on the show, man.
Yeah.
You would love it. The guy.
Yeah. See, I was right. Train master. Oh, the train master.
Oh, okay. What's
Well, we'll have to get him on the show so he can show us what he's doing.
Well, I know he's a master at live steam, but he's also a model railroader too.
There you go. So yeah, so you got to designate. Which one are you doing?
Oh, you're doing a 1.5, 1.6 scale. Oh, that is awesome, Chris. I got to get a picture of that.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to get on here.
True, crazy. We got Mark Pruitt popped in. Good morning, Mark.
Michael McCarville also popped in.
Hey, you and Dave, how's the weather up there now? It's been in the 70s here after all that cold weather. I hadn't looked to see what it's like up there, but I know when it was cold here, it was really cold up there.
Let's see.
Anyway.
Hey, we only got 8 likes, guys. Only
So
8 of
Yeah, we need more.
only 8 of you like our show. Wow.
Don't sweat that.
Just teasing.
Don't sweat that. And, you know, guys that come. If they didn't like it, they wouldn't be here. So much pushing buttons.
Got to finally hook up with John. That's cool.
Yeah, we're gonna get out. We're gonna have to get out to see Bernard one of these days.
No, Bernard's got to get out here, man. I want to fly around Grants Pass area.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah. My wife wouldn't let me in the airplane with him. I'm sure she didn't want me in small airplanes anymore.
Oh, I think my wife would like it. You know, plane goes down, she's set for life.
Are you saying she'd be on the ground throwing rocks at you?
No, she'd be underneath the plane taking things off.
Yeah. So Steve says what probably a lot of us think.
I said the
Exactly.
quiet loud.
Oh my goodness. Anyway,
Bernard, what we should do is we should do a flyover at Train Mountain. Now that would be cool.
yeah. Well, what'd be cool is if you had a good drone with good camera and stuff on it, would be a good way to do it too.
Oh, we've got actually Tim Parks has got a really good drone.
Yeah, that's the best use of a drone. Those little quadcopters and stuff, multi-rotor drones are really good for camera work. I didn't like them when I was flying RC stuff because they were causing all kinds of problems. But you know, now most everybody's using them for camera work. So, and they're much better than they used to be.
Well, see, yeah, Johnny 18, he says Bernard and I'll fly it. So there you go.
And Dave says that he lives in the banana belt. I thought that was down around Buena Vista in Colorado, along the Arkansas River was a banana belt. In the 50s, well, that's not too bad. Suffering from no snow. Yeah, I'm sure you are. I'm sure you love it when it snows 3 foot deep. Anyway, what's going on train-wise, guys?
Well, I'm just looking in chat and see what they're talking about.
Well, I finally got the last part of the upper deck set up there. It's not in place yet because I've got to do
And it doesn't fit.
Yeah, well, it will when I get done. Just got to get a bigger hammer.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I got it set up there. A friend of mine came over yesterday, helped me carry it up there, and we got it set down. And the wall's not square, so I've got to take the first part loose so I can get it put together, and then I'll reattach it. Not a big.
What do you got to do? Shave a little bit off of the backside or something?
No, it's only about over the length of 8 feet. It's only out about 1/4 inch, but it doesn't, because I've got the first half screwed to the supports. The second half's just sitting on there so I can line it up, but I can't push it the far end against the wall enough to get the gap closed on the backside. So if you're looking at from the front to the back wall, that joint where the track comes together is about 1/4 inch, maybe 3/8 separated at the wall, but it's butted up at the front. So I'm going to take that first part loose so I can pull it out and line it up. I'll attach them together, and then I'll fasten everything back to the supports.
Well, Roy says
It's a minor thing, and I just didn't do it yesterday, but that's something I can do without his help.
Roy says just a 25-pound sledge.
Yeah. Well, you know, when I was plumbing, that was it. You had a pair of channel locks and a hammer. If you couldn't fix it with that, it couldn't be fixed.
Well, High says just square the wall, then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Not squaring the wall up, that's for sure. No, I should have known it wasn't going to be square, but I didn't think about it. I already fastened the first part. If I hadn't fastened the first part, it wouldn't have been, no big deal.
Well, hell,
Pulled it out and put it together.
Nothing anywhere in a house is 90 degrees.
Yeah.
No, not very many. And of course, it comes off that curved wall. So that's the other thing. Back in that, on the corner to the left, where that comes up to the upper deck, is that big, long curved wall. And then it comes out to the doorway. It's just, but it's only off, like I say, 1/4 inch, 3/8 maybe, which is tiny when you think about how far off some stuff can be in a house. But anyway, I've got that up there, and I'll be attaching it probably today. So it's moving on. And then I got to get lights underneath because you can't see anything underneath it. It's black as night under there. I mean, it took all the room light away from the bottom deck.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'll get it put together, and then I can start doing scenery and stuff on it, which is exciting now. Getting toward the end, or toward the, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Let's put it that way. Still a long way off, and it still may be a train coming in the direction, but
that would be good. That wouldn't be a bad thing.
I still see, but I can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
So Claude, what will you do when you get it mostly done? Are you gonna, really then just focus on operations and having fun, or are you gonna be like most of us, start going, well, you know what, I could probably do better in that area. Maybe
No. If I was younger, yeah, that would probably happen. Or even I could even see tearing it out and doing something else. But now, if anything happens other than just operating, running it and having a good time with it, I'm really looking forward to detailing it, getting all the little stuff in it. That's what I'm really looking forward to. But if anything else were to happen, it'd be because of health reasons. And, I'd get my son or my friend or Dennis or somebody over here to help me start taking it apart and giving the stuff away. So,
I can do a lot with a sledgehammer in one weekend.
well, actually, the way
That's
I've got
awesome.
it put together, there'll be minimal damage to the walls once everything's off. It'll just be where the screws went into the wall. Well, because it's got an orange peel texture on it that's not finished, all they gotta do is come back with caulking or drywall mud and fill the holes. And then once it's painted, you never know it was there. So there's no major destruction to the walls. I put up 1x2s to put the backboard on, all that kind of stuff. So that's all it's going to be in. It's just holes into the sheetrock, which will be real easy to cover. And most of it's put together with screws and stuff, and except for the plaster areas, but it shouldn't be too hard to tear out if it had to be torn out. I just don't want to have to do it.
Yeah, we got Anthony. Good morning, Anthony. Georgia Sunbelt popped in. And Michael McCarville's here.
Yeah.
We were talking about you before the show about getting back on here.
Mike wants to film Dennis with a sledgehammer.
Sledgehammer and Sawzall.
Just holding the
Get rid of that
sledgehammer
layout.
or what? Yeah, a sawzall and a screw gun would probably be enough to take it apart.
So here's a topic we could maybe discuss for a few minutes.
Kettle car. Hang on.
Kind of hard. So what do you think? Is this a narrow gauge car, or is it a standard gauge car that someone put narrow gauge trucks on and sold on eBay to somebody who
Show from the end.
It looks to me like standard.
It's a narrow gauge car.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
so how
could
do you
be.
tell?
Is it a 2-deck livestock car?
Nope.
Because I would think that might be a little bit taller for the 2-deckers where they hauled sheep.
It's about, so it's 35 feet long, give or take. And then it's about a foot bigger in every other dimension than a Denver and Rio Grande stock car.
For my money, I would guess that's just a small standard gauge car, like, you know, maybe
Like
an
an early era.
No, that's possible. Yeah. But it could also be a particular line that built their own.
Yeah, you're free.
So
Yeah, my early.
Well, you broke up really bad there, Steve.
same height as the cattle. Michael says the 2-deck sheep car is the same height as the cattle cars. Yeah, so I went round and round on this because I bought 4 of them. I paid right at about $100 for the 4. And of course, there were no pictures on the site that gave any indication of what their size was, but they were listed as a narrow gauge car. They were listed as a scratch build. And so when I got them and opened them up and put them on the lid, I was like, these have to be standard gauge early era stock cars.
Yeah.
That someone has put narrow gauge trucks on, and I fell for it hook, line, and sinker, which still wasn't that big of a deal to me, because I'm like, well, all I got to do is put standard gauge trucks on them, and eventually I'm going to have some dual gauge I can still make use of. So I wasn't overly disappointed, but I went ahead and asked a few questions online. And so what I discovered, and I'm probably in the 95 to 98% sure that these were originally built Nevada, Colorado, Oregon.
Okay.
Is that right?
Chris Brew popped in with, and you could probably answer that, Bill. He says, or ON3 and ON30. You have those. Would that fit yours?
No, these are way too small to be anything O.
Yeah, I doubt they.
Yeah, even.
But the Nevada, I don't know if it's Colorado or California. I might have the acronym wrong, but they built cars that are basically, they took wrecked cars. They took wrecked standard gauge cars, and sometimes they just took a standard gauge flat car. They built this stuff on top of it. And so there's a pretty wide variety of dimensions of these cars, but they sold them, and or the Southern Pacific purchased a bunch of them and ran them on their narrow gauge. So this is, I believe, a kit. I can't remember what the name of the kit was, but somebody finally said, I think that looks like a 1970s whatever kit of the Southern Pacific narrow gauge, Nevada, California, and Oregon built cars. And they were all significantly bigger than anything the Denver and Rio Grande ran on their lines.
Yeah,
So
well, you find that a lot in the narrow gauge, amongst the narrow gauge railroads, that they'll have stuff that they built just for their railroad. You won't find it anywhere else.
yeah.
But it's not that you can't make a story with it and put it on there, or like you said, make it an old standard gauge and change the trucks out. And when you get the standard gauge stuff, because I bought a bunch of that kind of stuff, HO cars that are the shorty, the short 40 foot and less cars that had the billboard sides on them and stuff like that. So I've got a bunch of those, and they're all a little bit smaller than a
Nevada, California, and
Oregon.
Oregon.
Modern car.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense doing what you're talking about doing, Dennis. Making them for a standard gauge. They look nice. They look like a nice car. So, a quick question,
That's-
just related to narrow gauge. You're talking, and my perception of narrow gauge is, it's a singular line. It might have an interchange with a standard gauge. But did narrow gauge railroads that were in a similar geographic region, did they ever share cars? Or would that not be common?
Share
That it
cars
must be
with
their own?
who?
With another narrow gauge railway. So if they're interconnected, say, or share the same geographic area, would railroad X ever show up on railroad Y?
Michael might be able to answer that better than me.
Yeah, I don't know. And there probably could have been some of that. There's no telling. I've never studied it, but most likely what would have happened is one line shutting down and selling what they had and somebody else buying it. I mean, that's not any different. I just got this from the Cumbers and Toltec. They just bought one of these. And of course, they've got two of them in Durango now. Well, this one is going to be stationed in Antonito from what the article says, and they're only going to use it for emergency use. It's not going to be, used for excursions. But this is the case. It was on the White Pass line up in Alaska. It was built for them, and now it's down in Colorado. So,
yeah, and that makes sense.
That kind of stuff happens, I know, or did happen a lot.
Hey, Dennis, are you seeing Chris Brew's comments in there about it? He's got an extensive discussion on it. I won't read.
Yeah,
HON 30 would be a bigger car for the same track as HN.
That's because it would be a wider.
It would still be a scale of 187 though, right?
Well,
there's an ON 30 narrow gauge.
It should be, but if you're using 3-foot gauge at 187 and calling it 30-inch gauge, that makes everything bigger.
Well, Chris says it's the same idea of running 1.6 scale and 2.5 scale on 7.5-inch gauge track. So we do the same thing in the live steam.
Yeah. It changes the scale of the train, which normally doesn't happen in modeling.
Right. Which, I had so when I did my research on this, I did it on 2 different forums. And there was lots of people that suggested, well, maybe it's S scale, maybe it's ON 30, maybe it's this, that, and the other. And I put my scale ruler on it with the different scales, and I couldn't make it work in any other scale than 187. Again, I'm not entirely sure how, but the dimensions worked out almost perfect. It's only slightly bigger width-wise than the narrow gauge cars. It's like 7.5 feet versus 8 feet in width. I can't remember exactly, but the other dimensions, I think that it should have been in either an S or O narrow gauge or whatever, just really didn't make sense to me. So, and not to mention that I've got pictures of a car that looks exactly like this. The only difference is, here it's got SJS, which this is, I guess, the guy who built this originally. I'm presuming that was his model railroad. That this is the SJS and it's got the number. I've got pictures that looks exactly like the Southern Pacific narrow gauge cars that were made by Nevada, California, and Oregon.
Michael McCarthy says that they're for restocking the broths.
Yeah, and that was also in the article. They would put the young women in there. I'm just kidding.
But yeah, I bought some cattle cars.
Lynn says I got ripped off. Send them to him.
Yeah, I bought some cattle cars that seemed, when I got them, seemed to be smaller than HON 3 almost. I don't think they are. I didn't have anything else to compare it to other than an HON 3 reefer, and they're about the right size. But when I first got them, I thought, man, those are tiny. They just look really, really small for what they're supposed to be. But They look good. They're nice cars.
Yeah.
Anyway,
They're a little light. I need to see about putting some weight over the trucks. And of course, the other, I don't know what he did with the couplers. I don't know if the magnetic pin on 2 of the 4, it's like you're not going over a turnout. It's going to stub its toe every time. So I'm going to have to redo the couplers. But once I get that done and add just a little bit of weight, I think they're going to run well. I also put new trucks on them. They came, you know, and it was kind of a selling point. They came with these on them.
Hey, Dennis.
I don't want to say anything ill about anybody's printing ability or whatever, but let's just say that these were not going to work, period.
Well, Dennis,
3D printed bolster.
And that's what they're either 3D print. Yeah, they have to be 3D printed. They have to be.
hey, Dennis. He's got a question for you. He says, "What is narrow gauge?" He
Do
says
what?
And you saw what Mike said, didn't you? Going to spend more time in Colorado. Get out of New York City, man, and go to Colorado. You'll enjoy it.
Yeah. He needs
It's a lot
to.
prettier.
Heath needs to take a trip on
He does.
Durango and Silverton or the Cumbers and Toltec.
Yeah, yeah. And if you want to go behind an actual coal-fired
Nothing
steam engine, do it soon because they're changing them over to oil. So
Nothing
you still get
better.
the steam. You still get the steam, everything from the steam engine except for the coal smell. No soot in your eye though, so that'll be a good thing. But yeah, that's if you haven't been on one, you got to go ride one because it's really cool. And there's what they got the one out there, the East Broad Top's got a short line of it too, don't they? That they run excursions on.
Where?
East Broad Top area. There in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I don't think theirs is very long though.
I don't
It's
think
like
it
maybe
is
a half
either.
splout and something like that.
Yeah,
But they're working on adding more.
I
I
don't
think
think about it, but yeah.
Michael probably knows more about that.
Narrow gauges. He went.
Oh, and Bernard says the sheep were shorter back then.
See, that was another thing
They
that
were
was
narrow
brought
gauge
up.
sheep.
Somebody said, "Well, is it possible that it was a dedicated horse hauler?" And horses do tend to be taller than cattle, but I did some Googling there as well and kind of discovered what the average size horse was, and then compared it to here. And unless it was a ginormous draft horse, which they do exist, a normal horse can easily get in and get out of one of these without any problems. They might have to lower their head a little bit, but we're talking I believe this is 7 foot, and the average horse at the Withers is like 56 to 62 inches. So that kind of blew that whole, it's got to be made for horses. Somebody even suggested that it was actually for elephants, which I thought was a good suggestion. The brothel, restocking the brothel is probably the best suggestion that these were used for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes for unique stories on the layout.
Well, I could see a line if they were going now, maybe not a narrow gauge line, but if they were going to haul, say, the circus and have, of course, circus trains, and he likes circus trains, so he can pipe in on this. But I'm sure they'd build, if they needed a special car, they'd build their own car or have one built for it.
Yeah.
Which wouldn't necessarily be, the same size as everything else. But then you still gotta watch your clearances and stuff on the lines that you're gonna be on. So you can't get too oversized for wherever you're going.
Yeah, that's the only other thing about the car, is if it, which I didn't even do that. I don't know where I don't have my standards gauge to see if I think it's still well within the standards gauge.
Yeah, he says the narrow gauge is great. Why isn't it being used all over the United States, and why isn't it in the Northeast Corridor narrow gauge.
What is he talking
Well, it
about?
was used mainly to conquer the mountains.
Why is he coming in here picking a fight?
Oh, it's Heath.
I think Heath has been.
I think he knows the answer to that. I don't know if he's just trying to get discussion going.
Well, I mean, I'm not suggesting that
Narrow
we
gauge.
should change everything back to the narrow gauge, but when I think of narrow gauge railroading, especially in Colorado, I talk about people my grandfather's age and his father who conquered things that you just can't overstate, the engineering issues and the manpower issues and all of the things that they did to get these little rails through mountains. And to me, there's a mystique in that just supersedes any of the other railroads.
Yeah, I think the best way to get somebody to understand why they use narrow gauge versus standard gauge, go look at the Colorado Northern, Silverton Northern. Look at the Silverton Northern history and what it went to do. If you know anything about the $1 Million Highway, you know it goes from Durango to Ouray, and it's a spectacular drive if you ever get a chance to go on it. But they tried to get the train through that same way and got almost to Ouray and figured out they weren't going to be able to do it. Not feasibly anyway. But they had a covered turntable up there in one of the gulches called Corkscrew Gulch to turn the trains on. But they ran these things on very steep grades and very sharp corners. But that's what narrow gauge was for, because of the narrow gauge and the smaller trains, they were able to get it in places you couldn't have got a train in before.
Yeah.
As far as going across country, narrow gauge is not feasible. It just wouldn't make any economic sense. So it was a matter of economics and getting, in the case of the narrow gauges in Colorado, was getting the ore out. That was the biggest thing that did, was bring the ore out from the mines.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think he knew all that, but anyway, yeah, that's why they use it. And you know, Maine had a 2-foot gauge. So they did have it in the Northeast. And of course, East Broad Top was narrow gauge, but also for the same reason. It was going, through areas where it was a lot easier to get the narrow gauge than it would be a standard gauge.
Well, actually,
morning, Wilmer.
Get into West Virginia too, and the logging railroads, a lot of narrow gauge in and around the Appalachian Mountains.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And Sierra Nevada Mountains also had a lot of, all the logging railroads, almost all of them were narrow gauge.
Well, the main 2-footers have a really unique history in the East.
Mm-hmm. I saw some 2-foot gauge rails on the dock when we docked in, where was that we were docked at? I want to say Portland. I think it was Portland. And it was really funny because the rail looked so tall being that close together. It didn't look like a railroad track. It looked out of place, but it was a heavy rail, but only 2-foot gauge. And it just, when you see it in person, it's like, what was riding on this?
Yeah. Hey.
It just looked really strange. But I'm sure they had a reason for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, here we go. Hawaii had a narrow gauge that still runs along the coast of Oahu and the island of St. Kitts in the Caribbean. I've been on their narrow gauge. It goes almost all the way around the island. It's a nice ride if you ever go to St. Kitts. You get to see the side of the island that most tourists don't get to see because it's away from the towns and stuff, but they used it for the plantations. But yeah, they used narrow gauge in a lot of places where they couldn't get big trains through. How come long rails in the, okay, wait a minute, let's see what this, how come logging railroads and the passenger rail in Colorado are narrow gauge? Well, not all the passenger rail there, not all the rail there is narrow gauge. There's still standard gauge going through not Grand Canyon, but yeah, the Royal Gorge area. They still run a full-size excursion train through there. But that's where the California Zephyr went through, there and up through the Moffett Tunnel. That's all standard gauge. And what Dennis is modeling was actually standard gauge, what the terrain he's modeling, but he's doing it in the narrow gauge. So there was a lot of standard gauge, but there was also a lot of narrow gauge in Colorado, in the mountains. Anyway, what else we got here?
Well, Lynn says for Heath, if you went narrow gauge, you'd have more room for your layout.
Well, yeah, that's kind of one of the reasons I went narrow gauge instead of N scale. I was trying to stay away from N scale, but I didn't want to get so big that I couldn't get any track in there because my space is not very big. And so I chose narrow gauge. And plus I love the mountains. So I knew I was going to do mountains in there and it just fit for me.
Well, and Heath's calling you out, Dennis. He wants to know if you're doing modeling, why aren't you doing any videos?
What? Why? Dennis is doing some modeling. Why doesn't he post any videos? What is he talking about?
He's been.
I don't think, yeah. I think he's been hanging out with Bernard.
It is awful early to be hitting the bottle, Heath.
Yeah, we thought Bernard was juicing up, but I think you're ahead of him.
Which I'm not going to lie, I might not put out another video this month. It just kind of depends on how things go. I'm very low energy this weekend. Last weekend I was sicker than a dog. I did nothing in the model railroad room. I've got a project that I'm going to get started on. I just don't know when I'm going to do it. I guess this might be a good opportunity to transition to something else to talk about. This is my next, of course it's mirrored, but this is my next mock-up, I believe.
Oh, that's going to be cool.
Yeah. It's the it's a 5 stamp mill. Now I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to use these plans as a jumping off point. I might widen it and make it a 10 stamp mill. I'm not entirely sure how it's all going to work out. The first thing I need to do is kind of mock up the building, and I will make the decision on 5 stamp versus 10 stamp when I make the mock up. I might go ahead and look at making it at a 10 stamp if I feel like I can get the dimensions where they're supposed to be. And then I've also got to kind of incorporate the history of the mine with the railroad. And then, it's going to be down at this end of what is Maroon Creek. It's going to be one of the major manufacturers in Maroon Creek. And I'm just not entirely sure how it's all going to work yet. But that's getting that mock-up at a position where I can check it against the track, both the upper level track that's going to Aspen and the track that is in Maroon Creek, because it's going to be a dual, I have to work on the history of the mine itself to determine how the trackage works with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, on the stamp mills, they had tracks above bringing ore in, and then you had the tracks down below taking the refined ore back out. So yeah.
Well, see, and that's another thing I'm not 100% sure of. If you're using, if your end result is the amalgam or I might be mispronouncing that name. My understanding is that stuff was much smaller. We're talking like pea size after it come off of the shaker tables. And then there was another process after that to extract the gold from the
whatever ore they're using. They use a chemical reaction to get that off.
I think one time we need to slide into Bill and have Bill show us what he's been up to.
Not a whole lot.
At some point.
Well, I was going to answer Anthony's question right
No.
quick. He's talking about fire stamp mill. Anthony, the stamp mills were literally a place where they brought it in and crushed it. So the stamps were on a rotating deal, kind of like you get on a merry-go-round, and they just
on a cam,
on a cam, just up and down, and they'd feed the ore in, and it would pulverize the ore down, and then, like he was talking about, it'd go down through the sifters, and then they go through a chemical bath to get out whatever ore they're trying to get out, and do it that way. But anyway, if you look it up, look up a stamp mill, the inside of the stamp mill, you'll see it.
Bodie, California still has one that I think they operate for display on occasion. It's a great. There's lots of good videos out there on that one in Bodie.
Yeah, and if you look up Stamp Mill, Silverton, Colorado, just north of Silverton, about 3 or 4 miles, and you can drive up there in a regular car, is the remains of one. Of course, most of it's gone now, but you can see where it was sitting on the side of the hill. And in the hotel we were staying in, they actually had a picture of it. So it was kind of cool to see the picture of what was there and then go see where it was sitting. And it was massive. I don't know how many stamps it had in it, but it was pretty good size. Anyway, okay, Bill, what have you been doing?
Well, not a heck of a lot. I'll show you just a couple of things. Nothing with Jerry's project this week.
Oh,
I was actually traveling and back in Iowa, and I drove to Iowa. So guess where I went this week? I went to Caboose Stop Hobbies.
Yeah.
And I got
more
piles of crap.
More stuff.
Lots more stuff. So a lot more stuff for like scratch building. I got piles of different roofing material, some building kits, a variety of different things, but also this that I bought on their show, which is a brass Alco O-scale engine, a kit that somebody started. Everything is in here for like $125. So I'm gonna later on when I retire, I'll have some fun with that. Got some other cool stuff. They bought a partial collection, and for O-scale, I got piles of this, like model Ham River products for like scrap, rusty rails, O-scale, variety of different like shed kits, again, scrap stuff, but also, like tank. And there's a couple of things like this one in particular, nice O-scale hoist. Vertical.
Two-trim hoist.
I've got that. So all of this I got actually as a trade for some HO scale stuff that I took with me when I drove there that I bought from a collection years ago that is all modern. So I took that up there to sell, and basically we did a swap for all of this for what I brought up there. And then I also had a bunch of other stuff. I got more ON30 engines. So I got 2 different porters, an 040 and 042 porter. I got a variety of just things that I'm going to have some fun with. So I'll add it to my pile of things that I've got.
What gauge are the porters?
They're ON30.
So do you have a new ON30 project that you're thinking about?
Eventually, maybe. Because it's kind of hard to see, but if you look on the wall, all the green boxes and brown boxes, those are all ON30 engines as well. That stuff that I had bought, I'd spent a couple of $1,000s to buy them out, and it sounds like they've got another ON30 collection, which has got a huge amount of stuff. So if anybody's into ON30, call Caboose Stop Hobbies. They're getting piles of stuff in. I didn't get a chance to look at it, but eventually I will. So who knows? Who knows what I'm going to do in the future? And then over there is Jerry's layout. So what I've got under my camera stand here, all of this is for his power panel. So I went yesterday to Home Depot and Lowe's, got a variety of decorative screws to put it together, hinges, a variety of cabling so that I can do a double thing for his handheld throttle. You know, the cable from the MRCs are basically phone cables, so I shouldn't have too much problem, adding in like jacks for him. So I've got everything I need now for his panel, and that's the next project that I'm going to do on his build. So that's kind of where I'm at. This next few weeks, I'm going to be traveling again. So I'm going to be in North Carolina next week, and then I'm going to Asia, and then I'm going to Europe, and then back home. So when I leave on Monday morning, I won't get back to the house until the first part of March.
Well, Bill, I think you need a bigger ON30 layout.
I think I need a bigger garage.
Well,
or a house with a basement, So I need something. It's like we've talked, if I could get a house with a basement, what I would ideally do is I would have all the scales that I do now, and even reuse maybe some of these components, but I would have a corner of a basement where I would have all three scales in the same place. I would have like the O scale or ON30 right at the front of the viewing area in the corner. So, you'd have a big train kind of moving through, maybe on a trestle, and have sort of a canyon going up. HO scale a little bit farther back, kind of snaking along a canyon, bridge, trestle crossing over and disappearing. And then in the far distance, N scale, maybe at an elevated area, again, another bridge going by, all within maybe, a depth of 4 to 5 feet. Forced perspective, but that would be like the ultimate modeling experience that I'd want to do.
Wilmer wants to know what your half-drank Coke is used for.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Half-drank Coke is used for flushing my biological systems.
There you go.
We'll do it.
That's pretty good. I thought I saw somebody else had a question.
Well, Heise said Alan should take down the wall so you'd have more room. I don't know.
Yeah.
Take down the wall so you have more room? That's probably a no-go. I know it's a no here.
That just wouldn't happen anywhere easily.
Yeah. The biggest change I made on the room where my layout sitting is I put in a attic stair because our air conditioning heaters are up there above it. And the access hole was straight above the layout. So that's the first thing I did was put in a stair to get up to that. So I didn't have to bother crawling over the top of the layout to get up there.
He's got a question, but we don't have time to answer that one. What's the difference between scale and gauge? We could be all over that one.
Gauge is the difference between the distance between the rails. Scale
generally has nothing to do with scale.
No.
Yeah, that's you get into the 1.5 scale live steam hobby, and
I think some people will use the term gauge when they actually don't mean they'll use it to represent a scale, and they're not actually. People will say, "Well, I'm an in gauge. I do in gauge." Which is not, in scale is 1 foot equals 160, right? HO is 1 foot equals 87.
Well,
is 1 foot equals 48, so on and so forth. The gauge is the distance between this rail and that rail. So HO is still 187. Standard HO will be 48.5 inches between the two rails, or whatever the measurement is.
Well,
HO in 3 means it's 3 feet between those rails, but all of the measurements remain the same.
And in 1.5 scale, there's a good picture that I sent Claude of my steam engine next to one up at Train Mountain. Mine's 1.5 scale. This guy's is 3.5 inch. scale, but they both run on the same gauge track, and his is massive compared to. So
Right. Hey there, Claude just went sideways.
Yeah.
I don't know what's up with that.
And I
these thumbs up. I don't know.
I presume that when you're talking about the live steam world, those two things are probably a little more complicated, at least in my opinion, than what they are in the smaller modeling world.
actually, they're I don't know. They're either the same or simpler because we run on 7.5-inch gauge track, but
Right, but what does that equate to?
Okay,
Scale wise, distance between the rails.
That, well, in 1.5-inch scale, that's the standard 5 foot, whatever it is. And in 2.5-inch scale, it's 3 foot gauge or close. But 2.5 is 2.5 inches to the foot, mine 1.5 inches to the foot. And this one that was up at Train Mountain next to mine was 3.5 inches to the foot. I mean, my valves are little tiny things, and his are just big valves in the cab. I mean, this thing is probably, 2.5 feet, 3 feet wide.
But is it a narrow gauge locomotive?
Yeah.
Well, and the reason you find that in the live steam is because you're not going to have the different gauges of track for live steam like you would for modeling. It's just not feasible. And so Train Mountain's built a 7.5-inch gauge. And if you want to run a train there, it doesn't matter what the scale is, you build it to fit that gauge. But it could be bigger than that. So like if it's a 2.5-inch scale, it's going to look like a real life narrow gauge more than if it's 1.5-inch scale and you build it on there. Because like Steve's American is 1.5-inch scale, but it doesn't look like a narrow gauge engine sitting on those tracks. To me, it's a whole different animal than doing model trains, electric trains. It's kind of hard to explain, but you got to build it to fit the track that you want to run on. Well, you don't do that with model trains. Model trains is you get the track to fit the trains that you want to run.
Well, a lot of guys, they like that, like narrow gauge in the large live steam, and they like the bigger trains that you don't necessarily straddle, you actually sit in them. They're big. Yeah,
and they look just as lifelike, but the track then becomes a narrow gauge track to that train versus a full scale or full gauge track on a smaller scale. Like I say, they build the train to fit that track because that's what they've got to run on. They can't go down to the store and buy a whole, 30 or 40 acres worth of track to put behind their house. So they go someplace like Train Mountain and they fit whatever they want to build, whatever they've got to that track because that's what they've got to run on.
But what's really cool about the larger equipment that they run, because they have a narrow gauge meet they do every year up there. The guys all get together. I mean, you'd be all over it, Claude. You'd love it. But the size of the boilers, they run larger whistles than you would generally put on an 1.5-inch scale, and they sound really good.
Yeah, they're going to sound more like a full-size train. Yeah. Mike's got a question. What are engines behind me? I have some of those prints. Mike, I got this one over here. This one I got at the Model Railroad Museum when I was there. This is just a print of the California Zephyr coming through. I'm not sure what the stop is on that one. This one is number 473. I can't.
K28.
I don't remember what the name of that is. Durango and Silverton. It says Durango and Silverton on it. So that's I don't know, what the lithograph or something. I got this in Silverton. This one up here is the number 7 Galloping Goose. I don't know if you can see that one or not, but it's same kind of thing as this. I got it in Silverton when I was up there one time. So hopefully that answers the question.
Number 6.
So we got about 5 minutes left, guys. Any other questions?
I misread the clock. I thought we were running out of time 5 minutes ago. So that's what happens when you get up in the
Mike
morning.
says he's got those black and white prints. Yeah, they're really nice prints. And I got them from the place in Silverton. And I thought the guy was going out of business, getting ready to go out of business because he's going to retire. But that's all he's got in his store, basically, are different prints. Railroad memorabilia, posters like this. But he had a lot of these kind of prints, really nice looking prints and big prints. If you like the railroad art. And I wish I could tell you his name, but all you have to do is go to Silverton and say, hey, who's got all the prints, railroad prints, artwork, and they'll tell you where it's at. It's on the main drag there in Silverton. If he's still there.
He says he tried sitting on 10 scale trains and it didn't go well. Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
No.
Mike, did you get my email I sent the other day?
Swear Heath, you need to stop drinking.
I might have sent it to the wrong email address. Do what?
No, I'm just thinking Heath really needs to stop drinking so early in the morning.
Yeah, that would help. Hey, and Mike, by the way, anytime you check with Michelle about maybe doing a live stream from the Model Railroad Museum, just let me know and we'll get it set up and do that if you ever get a chance to do it.
That would be cool.
One morning. Of course, I know it's a little early for you, but I think it'd be a really good show and guys could ask questions that haven't been able to be there. I mean, it's just a really nice layout. If you ever get up north of Denver on the Front Range there, go to Greeley and see the museum because it's really, really good. I know it's been on YouTube a bunch of stuff, but it's nothing like being there and seeing it. It's really impressive.
Yeah, okay. Heath wants the show to end so he can get back on the wagon.
What, the N-scale wagon?
Oh, man.
I thought he said he tried that and it didn't work out so well.
My guess is he had to have stuff removed.
Well,
that would be a nasty tunnel for the trains to go in.
Oh, Mike says he just posted another video at the train museum, so you guys go see that. And if you've not been there, you can go see that. And you've probably seen videos of the place, but it's a very impressive layout. And I only saw what they were showing. I didn't go back and look at the staging areas and all that kind of stuff. But it's a pretty cool layout. And the only thing that surprised me about it was it's not a model of Colorado. It is mountain railroading, but it's Oregon, not Oregon and Washington, I guess. Someplace up in the Northeast or Northwest. But it wasn't Colorado, which I found kind of strange. But it's still pretty good.
You gotta love Oregon.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Oregon's beautiful too.
Yeah, can't argue that.
Well, part of it is.
Imagine every state has its ugly part.
Yeah, not out where Chuck lives. That's not real pretty out there.
No, you get east of the Cascades, man. It's all desert.
It's desert. Yeah, they don't get much rain out there. Anyway, that's our time, guys. So anyway, we'll plan to be back here next week. And Bill, if you're in-house, if not,
yeah, next probably 2 to 3 Saturdays I won't be. I'll be flying at this time still on Saturday. Following Saturday, I will be traveling to Milan, Italy, and then the following Saturday, maybe I might be where I can jump on. I'll have to see, but I'll be traveling back from Italy to the U.S. at that point.
don't tell my wife you're going to Italy. She'll sneak into your luggage. She loves Italy.
And
Anyway.
if you got any questions for us, email us back on track, or if you want to be on the show.
Yeah, if you want to come on the show, let us know. Just send an email to Back on Track moderators.
Back on track moderators at gmail.com.
Yep. Or you can send an email to me if you want. I think my email is on my YouTube page. So if you want to do that, you can do that too. Anyway, because I don't check the Gmail for the show all that often. I try to get in at least a couple of times a week, but I don't look at it every day. So if you want to get a quick note to me, send it to my email. Anyway, thanks guys for being here. Dennis, glad you're feeling better.
Yeah.
And tell Gail hello for us, and we will see everybody in chat. Have a good weekend and a good week, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Carol.
guys.
See you.